All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to For St. Pete's Sake, the podcast where we deep dive into everything Democratic here in Pinellas County, the state of Florida, and beyond. My name is Christian Hotchkiss. I am your host, along with my amazing co-host, Laura Gherkin. Laura, how are you?
I'm doing really well today, Christian. It's been rainy and kind of gloomy, and so that makes it nice little like sleepy time weather, but we've needed the rain so bad. So I'm really glad that it's been raining.
We did. We needed this rain. I'm so happy about it. And the fact that it's not 107 degrees in August is amazing. So
helps too.
I'm not searing the flesh off my skin when I grab the steering wheel.
Right.
I'm excited today because we have a fantastic guest today. You might have seen them recently on Fox News or on your TikTok from clips of that. I will allow them to introduce themselves. But hello, Mr. Oliver Larkin. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on, Christian and Laura. Oliver Larkin here, Democratic candidate in Florida's 25th district, which is Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade counties from Delray Beach down to Miami Beach after this illegal gerrymander by Republicans in Tallahassee, that is. And we're running in the August 18th primary election. I'm a Fort Lauderdale native, union organizer, campaign worker. I got my start when I quit my job as a line cook and drove to New Hampshire to volunteer for Senator Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign, organized a union in my workplace with the News Guild Communication Workers of America, have been working in progressive organizing in Florida for a long time. In 2018, it was with New Florida Majority on their Amendment 4 campaign to restore voting rights to over 1 million Floridians. I've stood up against luxury developers in my hometown of Fort Lauderdale with the 99-year private lease of public land at Bahia Mar, standing up for LGBTQIA and trans youth against the Proud Boys and Moms for Liberty with groups like Equality Florida. And I just care so deeply about our state, and I've been really disturbed by the rightward drift that we've seen in recent years. And I know that we're better than this, and I know that, frankly, the Republican rule in Washington, D.C. and 30-plus years in Tallahassee is not doing anything to address our needs here in my community. The Miami metropolitan area just surpassed New York City Metro in terms of the cost of living, and we don't have New York City wages in South Florida. We have 30 years of Republican rule in Tallahassee wages. So this is really about bringing some progressive leadership to our state and to our country in Congress, and being part of a wave that when we take back the House majority in 2026, that we are ready to move full steam ahead on implementing the progressive agenda that South Floridians and so many people across our state and the country deserve and want to see.
Absolutely. I love that you're one of the few candidates that we've talked to this season about, and you bring up unions. And I'm originally from Ohio, specifically Toledo, where Jeeps are made. So I grew up in a union family. Unions are so important. They are so important to the working conditions that we all, get to live in now, having child protection laws and minimum wage and all that. But unions have gotten a pretty bad rap over the last 20 to 30 years, and a lot of the right to work stuff has come up. So how do you see expanding those sort of things? How would you use your time in Congress to expand options for labor and for example?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a really interesting moment right now where, because of the long and coordinated attack on unions in our state, we just had an awful legislative session where they raised the threshold for union recertification. So in many respects, it's never been harder to organize a union, but unions have also never been more popular in recent decades than they are right now. I think it's because we're suffering from this very acute cost of living and affordability crisis. And when we've seen in recent years workers stand up, it's been the Amazon labor union standing up against one of the wealthiest people in the world in Jeff Bezos. We've seen teachers go on wildcat strikes across the country, standing up for their colleagues, for their students, for the kids that they take care of every single day. So unions are popular right now, and what we need to do in Congress is go beyond just passing the PRO Act, which is essential legislation. We need to pass the PRO Act. We need to make it easier for workers to join unions, to stop these captive audience meetings where management will try to go in there and fearmonger about what your union dues are or are not going to get you. we need to get out of the way of allowing for this union busting from management. So we can pass the PRO Act, but we also need to look at the ways that teachers, for instance, are banned from going on strike, or public sector workers are banned from going on strike. And this is, in my mind, an attack on our First Amendment rights. If we have the freedom of protest, the freedom of assembly, then we should protect these when it's people coming together in an organized fashion for our collective bargaining rights. So I definitely want to attack reverse the attacks that the DOJ effort has made to void collective bargaining agreements. We've seen, AFGE workers employed through the Social Security Administration, we're talking about 8,000 layoffs. And when seniors that are entitled to the benefits that they've paid into and they've earned can't get help because the caseworkers are so overwhelmed with 30, 40, 50 stacks of people's profiles that need help in a given day. We just need to end this attack, this coordinated attack on federal workforce, collective bargaining, and union protections. So it starts with protecting our federal workforce and protecting public sector employees and public sector unions. But we also need to support these efforts in the private sector. And I think one thing that's so encouraging about this coming Congress is this is going to coincide with a lot of the, when you look at the United Auto Workers and other unions that are organizing for their contracts to expire on May Day 2028. This is a lever of power and a piece of leverage that the working class has, regardless of who is in power in Congress. This outside agitation has always been a necessary component when we've seen passage of the New Deal legislation under FDR or the civil rights legislation that was passed under LBJ. It always came from outside organizing and labor working in concert with civil rights organizers and other organizers. So I think that's the kind of inside-outside strategy that we need more members of Congress to have. And coming in as a union organizer, as someone with the organizing background, I think is going to be really essential to win these labor protections, both in legislation, but also in using labor's influence and power over collective bargaining.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, just I love a lot of things on your platform because there are so many points that we know are good, but we don't have the right representation right now. And, we're hoping that changes. We've seen a lot of progressive socialists get elected over the past number of months. Even winning primaries in other states. And I don't want to label you. However, you are running against a DeSantis Democrat, quote unquote, in Jared Moskowitz. So what made you decide to get into this race and try to primary him was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, it really started when I was ready to volunteer for someone running against Congressman Moskowitz. I made this decision very early after the 2024 election. I saw him joining DOJ as the first Democrat to give it that bipartisan credibility. I saw him as the only Democrat in our state to vote for the Laken-Riley Act. I saw him voting, even during Biden's lame duck period, for that nonprofit killer bill that would have allowed for the Trump administration to designate nonprofits it disagrees with as terrorist organizations, to strip their tax-exempt status. And we've already seen, especially in the LGBTQ community here, the way that kind of denial of access and denial of equity has impacted funding. So I was ready to volunteer after he was unopposed in 2024, but then I waited 6 months, 8 months, and I didn't see a candidate materialize. And I wasn't willing, after we've seen the rightward shift in our state, to not have a level of democratic accountability. And for me, as a proud dues-paying member of the Democratic Socialists of America, I wanted to run authentically and openly about what I believe in, because when we look at some of the most popular elected officials within the Democratic Party and nationally, we see Senator Bernie Sanders, we see Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, we see Mayor Zoran Mamdani. We've seen this wave of new progressives winning, and not just in the deep blue seats. I mean, we're seeing the Democratic field consolidate around Francesca Hong in Wisconsin for governor. We're seeing, of course, we'll see tomorrow, but Abdul El-Sayed in Michigan. So we're seeing progressives winning the argument within the Democratic Party. It is not enough to simply be anti-Trump, especially when your anti-Trumpness is in rhetoric, but then you're actually working with the Trump administration or working with the DeSantis administration on any number of issues, whether it's DOJ or immigration or so forth. And to my mind, coming to you from Palm Beach and Broward and Miami-Dade County, this has been the turnout engine for Democrats when we've been competitive and done really well statewide in Florida. When we won, and I joined the Democratic Party before I joined DSA when I was 16 years old and Barack Obama was running for president in 2008. I mean, it's this big, bold vision that has inspired people to believe in the Democratic Party. And when our party has been at its best, we've embraced these bold universal visions and platforms and policy agendas. So I think this is what our state needs. And one thing I'm really proud of in a closed primary state is the way that we've been using our campaign to bring people who are non-party affiliated or who are unregistered into the Democratic Party process because they see the capability to elect a candidate of their preference. And let's be clear, Florida is a closed primary state. If you're not registered with a political party, you are disenfranchised. You cannot participate in elections in the same way. So I see this as one tent pole in the big tent that if we're going to take on Republicans and win in November, we cannot be marginalizing people because they have more progressive beliefs. We need everyone in the party, which is why I would hope that Congressman Moskowitz and many others towards the center of the party will be just as supportive when we have proud progressive and democratic socialist nominees. I think this is what many people see the direction the Democratic Party needs to take away from the corporate influence and towards these universal policies that support everyone.
Absolutely. And it's about honesty and accountability. And we need to hold our leaders accountable, who we have in office now and who we want to see in the future. And you're doing exactly what that is. You're holding Congressman Moskowitz accountable. And I think that it's incredible to see. And I know that you've said that you would support him if he wins. I hope that he will turn around and say that he will support you. I don't think he's giving any indication of that, but we'll see what happens after the primaries.
One of the things I think that's really important too that you brought up is that especially for NPAs and people who haven't been engaged in the process before is Democrats, should we take control again, we need to walk and chew gum at the same time. Really, we need to be able to prosecute and investigate what has been done and thus far under the Trump administration, but we can't stop at that. We need to move forward and move our agenda forward, even if it's just in the House, hopefully the Senate too, but we'll play it by ear. So what are some of your policies that you would use to move our party forward or move your positions forward to get us to be, not a totally unlikable party across the United States?
Yeah, I would say immediate things that we can do after 2026 when we take back the House majority. We need to issue subpoenas to compel the under oath testimony of members of the Trump administration in ICE that have committed these constitutional and civil rights violations. Not saying that the Department of Justice is going to enforce subpoenas, but we can at least have Congress issue them and compel the public testimony so that there can be some measure of accountability for the criminal law breaking by the masked ICE agents, but also by the people, the cabinet level secretaries that have knowingly carried out unconstitutional efforts to racially profile people, to detain immigrants, to detain even American citizens that are standing up for our immigrant neighbors. I also think that there's tremendous leverage that the Democratic Party in a House majority can use over budget reconciliation when we go into this next Congress. Just as easily as Republicans were able to slash Medicaid by $1.1 trillion and give $170 billion to ICE, more money than all but the militaries of 10 countries, we can use our leverage to make the real material concessions that Republicans need to make if they're going to keep the government open. We need to restore I'm fighting for Medicare for all, let's be clear. But we need to take any and every opportunity that we can to restore people's access to health care, restore these premium tax credits under the Affordable Care Act. I'm talking to people at the doors in my district who their premiums, especially for a family with dependent children under the age of 26, these premiums are out of control right now. And it is driving the affordability crisis that we're facing. So I think if we're able to restore the premium tax credits and continue to push to expand Medicaid in our state of Florida, we've got to get the Medicaid ballot referendum on the ballot by 2028 so that we can expand healthcare while we fight for Medicare for all. We also need to bring the cost of housing down. There was legislation that Trump was actually considering to sign to make housing more affordable. With a Democratic majority in Congress in the House of Representatives, we can really push that forward, regardless of what the Trump administration or the Senate. I hope we can take back the Senate too. It's looking increasingly like North Carolina and Georgia, and hopefully Maine with a new nominee. We can take back that chamber as well. So I think with budget reconciliation, we've seen the government can move very quickly. We lowered the child poverty rate by 50% in 1 year with the expanded child tax credit. So these are the issues that I want to be working for. And I know that Republicans in these Biden 1 and Harris 1 districts that are desperate to hold on to their seats in 2028, they're going to have to support some of these policies to try to save their own skin. So Democrats have to use the leverage that we have. And for me, as one of the more progressive aspiring members, as one of the only Democratic socialists that could potentially be in Congress, I'm willing to use my leverage to really the way that the House Freedom Caucus is able to wield it for dastardly ends. I want to see progressives use our leverage in the same way that we've seen Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema block our agenda. We need to be just as willing to use our leverage to fight for it.
I love that. I love that. I agree with that so much. And I love to hear that. Thank you.
Absolutely. You touched on a lot of, or a couple of different platform. Oh God, things that you would do in Congress. Sorry. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into the affordability crisis that we're seeing right now with the price of gas, the price of housing. I filled up today on my tank on my car, which is a Nissan or Toyota Camry, and it was $65 just to fill that car. So let's dive into that a little bit. What would you do to help save our people from the affordability crisis that is happening right now?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the cost of gas, stop this war with Iran. I mean, for goodness sake, we've had 5 months of war, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. What this means is that fertilizer cannot move through the Strait of Hormuz. We can't have petroleum moving through the strait. And the United States and many other countries as well have already tapped into our strategic petroleum reserves, and that's defrayed some of the cost of fuel and gasoline in recent months. But I fear very much that we're in for another spike, especially with this vicious escalation that we're seeing that has already claimed the lives of thousands of Iranians. We bombed a girls' school on day 1 of this war, and we've seen nearly 20 U.S. service members killed in action, over 500 injured. But this is a long rolling, similar to the disruption of supply chains during COVID. When we see the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, when we see fertilizer that cannot move through the strait to get to our agricultural farmers, that is going to make the cost of fertilizer, of seed, of everything else that goes into growing our food more expensive. So we're going to be feeling these price effects in the grocery store in 3 months, in 6 months. It is really, we are experiencing just the beginning of the inflationary cost of this illegal war that Donald Trump has started without the consent of Congress. We're spending $1 to $2 billion a day that is being taken out of our healthcare, our housing, our education, but it's also leading to this inflationary aspect when it comes to our gas and our groceries. Some of the things that we've seen the most inflation from in recent years. So we need to end this war. We also need to take on, in my mind, the private equity and corporate landlords that are buying up so much affordable housing stock. The Miami metro area just surpassed New York City metro as more expensive to live in. And in Florida, we see groups like Invitation Homes and Lennar Homes, whether you're a private home construction company or one who owns tens of thousands of rental units, when we see the property insurance crisis affecting homeowners, but also being passed on from landlords to renters, to my mind, when we go to Congress, we should have a federal homeowners insurance guarantee, because in Florida, it's hurricanes, it's flooding. I know over on the Gulf Coast, there's still homes with tarps that have had tarps on the roof for years because the solvency, the liquidity of these private insurers, they got completely wiped out by some of these storms, or they just decided they're going to pull out of the state. So we are experiencing a crisis here. And if you look at states like Arizona or California, people can't get their homes insured because they're in wildfire risk zones. So we need to fix the national flood insurance program. We need to lower the cost of property insurance. And I think this is going to be felt at all levels of the market, from the private homeowners, the people who thought they were buying their retirement home and now can't afford their doubling or tripling property insurance on a fixed income. It's going to help the condo owners that are suffering from these massive assessments that are being leveled in the wake of Surfside. And of course, we need to make sure that there's structural integrity. But condo owners right now are paying for decades of negligence, and we're just really seeing the crunch at every level of the housing market. And that's the number one expense that most people have. People are spending 50-60% of their monthly income on housing. So if we stabilize the property insurance market with a federal guarantee, and if we take on the private equity and corporate landlords and pass more legislation to build more affordable housing, I think that will do a lot to reverse the trend where currently half of people are considering leaving the state of Florida, according to an FAU poll last year, because of the cost of living crisis. I also want to see the feds step in and restore funding for the public transportation that DeSantis and the state legislature is cutting. They tried to restore Tri-Rail funding during the special session. They could not ultimately get it passed through the Senate. We're seeing Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach County scrambling to make up tens of millions of dollars that have been cut from Tri-Rail, when Tri-Rail had record ridership last year. People want public transportation. People benefit from public transportation. Even if you want to still drive your own car, you're going to benefit from having the reduced gridlock. So I think these are some of the things where the cost of a new car, auto insurance, or a new car loan is so expensive. So if we're able to attack some of the most expensive aspects of living in Florida, housing, transportation, groceries, I think we can do a lot to lower that cost of living. And I think a lot of that action can be taken through Congress in this next congressional session.
Amazing. Yeah. Their Tampa Bay Times did a report, I think it was earlier this year or the end of last year, that nearly 50% of rentable, ownable properties in the Tampa Bay area are owned by private equity interests. And, I didn't know that Miami-Dade had just gone above New York City, but, my little sister lives in New York and we're in St. Pete. And I've joked with her. I was like, it might be the same if I just moved up there when when my niece is born at this point, like, who knows? But yeah, it's all of what you said. It's affected. Everybody's affected by that. Not just Miami-Dade and St. Pete. It's all over the state of Florida and all over the country, really. But here I wanted to get. We've made it about halfway through, and we haven't quite gotten to your awesome appearance on Fox News. I just want to hear about that. Like, how did you get your opportunity to go into the belly of the beast? And you did a fantastic job, for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. So it really started when one of the Fox producers reached out and wanted to just interview me to get my answers on video about a number of issues. It was around the time that the national DSA platform was coming out, and Fox took some of those clips. They also covered a virtual rally that we did back in March. They framed it as an exclusive, even though it was publicly broadcast on the Breaking Points YouTube channel. Like, we've got nothing to hide, but they did some fear mongering because it was with Hassan Piker and it was with a lot of the other progressives and democratic socialists that have won their primaries recently, like Claire Valdez and Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier and Chris Rabb. And so they spun all of this up. They had a couple of articles about me. And so they invited me on The Story with Martha McCallum the day that Trump was having a press pool in the Oval Office. And so Martha McCallum started asking me about Zoran Mamdani's video calling for the arrest and the enforcement of the ICC warrant on Benjamin Netanyahu. And she asked me whether I regretted jumping on the bandwagon. And I said, what bandwagon? This is respecting international law. This is adhering to internationally agreed upon standards.
Such a simple standard.
Yeah. So they cut that interview out, or they cut the interview short because Trump started speaking. And so they said they owed me one. And so they called me back a few days later and said, hey, we've got another opening during the same time slot. Trace Gallagher was filling in for Martha McCallum. And so they invited me back on. And I knew that they were going to try to fearmonger about immigration because they were playing before my segment the clip from Ceuta, Spain, the enclave on the northern coast of Africa, where Spain and Morocco share our border, and they were showing the migrants that were crossing into Spain, and the host said, "Aren't you afraid of this? Shouldn't Americans be afraid of this happening in our country?" And I said, "No, if people are coming to the United States seeking a better life, we have nothing to be afraid of that. Immigrants contribute to society." Then he started saying, "Well, what about the crimes that migrants commit? What about that?" And I said, migrants commit crimes at a lower rate than U.S. citizens. People who come here from other countries are overwhelmingly, they're more predisposed to being small business owners, to being entrepreneurs. They pay taxes that they themselves do not benefit from. So they're literally giving more to the system than they get out. Fox News loves to flip that narrative and try to say that it's the opposite, but it's a blatant lie. And so they asked me finally a second time, a third time, about crimes committed against children by migrants. And that's where I just said, look, I've tried to answer this nicely twice now. If you're going to keep asking me about migrants assaulting children, then we have to talk about the pedophile president in the White House, Donald Trump, and everyone implicated by the Epstein files. I mean, enough already. Like, do not come at me with this line of questioning when this is the guy that you're promoting and defending every single day on your airwaves. People are just sick of it. And I think the travel and the carry that this clip has had really just speaks to there's such a desire for Democrats to, like, you don't need to go on there and try to do the bipartisan thing or try to be like, I'm one of the good ones. Like, call them out. Like, don't be afraid of trying to manage what you're going to say to adhere to their audience or to getting the host to like you. There is a truth that most Americans feel. And while Fox News may have a very committed viewership, it is not representative of where the majority of the American people are at. And the majority of Americans want to see justice for let's keep in mind who we're centering. This is about the survivors and the victims of abuse that has been really a organized crime syndicate with the number of people that are implicated. And we have one of the most culpable, one of the most just staggering bodies of evidence of Donald Trump's culpability, from the Access Hollywood tape to his commentary about Miss Teen USA, to everything, the E. Jean Carroll defamation case that he's currently paying damages because he was found civilly liable by a jury of his peers for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll. I mean, there's just a mountain of evidence against this guy. And then there's a bipartisan bill that is passed that compels the Justice Department to release these files, and they're not complying with the law. I said they're not leaking it, but it's really they're not complying with the law that Donald Trump himself signed. So enough already. And I think that's the attitude that people want to see. Just stop trying to work around the hypocrisy. Call it out when we see it.
I so agree, because especially, with that segment of people who, or that media, especially that media organization, no matter what you say, they're going to splice it to make you sound X, Y, or Z. So you might as well be honest and genuine to yourself and get your message and get the proper message out there. And I think that's why, like, Pete Buttigieg also did, wasn't afraid to go on there and speak truth to power. And because, it's no matter what, they're going to splice and dice to say whatever they want. But you're going to have that moment if you just continue to be yourself. So I just really thought that was really impressive. And, and it does take a lot of guts to do that, because there is, in this day and age, the backlash that comes with saying those things is swift as well. So I just want to give you kudos for all of that. It was very impressive, and I was very excited to see it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I find the moral hypocrisy of the Republican caucus right now so bewildering, because I don't understand how they would go one conversation on Fox News saying that the Democrats need to drop the candidate from Maine, and then the next one where they're praising Donald Trump and all of these other people that are in the Epstein files, and they're defending the Justice Department for not sending out the rest of the files unredacted. So the moral hypocrisy of it all is something that I will never understand, and that's why we just need to vote them out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at the absolutely chilling allegations, the credible allegations against Max Miller. who's currently being challenged by Democrat Brian Poindexter in Ohio. I mean, Max Miller, the former son-in-law of a Republican senator from his state, Bernie Moreno, Max Miller was credibly accused with evidence of pouring scalding hot water, boiling water on his wife and breaking their 2-year-old daughter's child bone. And then what is his defense? Yesterday, he goes on a Twitter live and says, if I had abused my wife, would she have really cooked me dinner the next week? As if that's not a trapped in an abusive marriage that so many women have to suffer through and try to mitigate. So, I mean, just Fox News cannot go after Graham Plattner and not have the same even standard applied for Max Miller. And what Graham Plattner was accused of is disqualifying for any congressional candidate. So why can't they say the same when it's one of their own? It is just the rank hypocrisy. I mean, the allegations against Max Miller are really chilling, but
horrendous.
The list goes on. I mean, Matt Gaetz nominated for Attorney General of the United States when there was all the evidence already out there about his relationship with Joel Greenberg, who's incarcerated right now for child trafficking. There's so much. We could go on, but the Max Miller thing has been really, really stuck in my craw amidst all of this, hand wringing over Plattner and ignoring the reality of the Epstein files and the people in the Republican Party caucus.
And a person who has strangely gotten a pass in the whole Epstein files, and like even from Florida electorate, because if you really think about it, this is, a lot of this stems from the the being public by the Miami Herald, that story coming out is that, there were Pam Bondi. Your hands are all over this from a state level up to when you were attorney general too. So like she's and I don't think it's a coincidence that the only people in this in the Trump administration that have lost their jobs so far are women. That's not shocking. So, we all know who they're using as scapegoats, but like she's definitely covered she's been in part of some, these things as well over the years. And like I said, I think we definitely need to walk and chew gum at the same time, both in DC and in Tallahassee, when we get our power back, to both investigate these things and then move our platform forward. Because we had Earl Ford on our podcast. He's running for CFO of Florida, and he was IRS. He was Doge. He was an IRS agent that got Doge. So it's like we have so many great people that we've lost, and like a lot of just hardworking that bad word bureaucrat, but they're just hardworking people, and they're doing their best for their country and for themselves. And I don't know how we get a lot of that knowledge back too.
Yeah, and I mean, it really speaks to the fact that when we look at the Trump administration, we see Pam Bondi, we see Marco Rubio, we see all of these people whose careers before they were in Washington, they were in Tallahassee, they were in our state. And that's why we need to elect Jose Javier Rodriguez over James Uthmeyer for the Attorney General's race. Why I've met Earl. I saw him at Leadership Blue, and would really love to replace Blaise Ingoglia, who's running the Doge for the state of Florida, with a candidate like Earl, who's going to actually be delivering on a fiscally prudent and responsible CFO's office to benefit Floridians, not wealthy Republican Party of Florida campaign donors. It really does just speak to the need for us in Florida, because the Florida of today is the United States of tomorrow, with the way that we've seen Republicans use Florida as a launching pad for their national political aspirations. So we've got to win up and down the ticket in November. And I think that's why we're so excited about the organizing that we've been doing, the door knocking and the canvassing, and bringing people into the party, because we're really going to need to mobilize Floridians, working class people that have been. I talk to so many of them. They actively avoid the news. They see it come up on their television. They turn it off. They change the channel. Like, people are so stressed out. They're so overwhelmed already by just the stress of everyday life, the cost of living crisis. And then seeing the indignity of Pam Bondi hiding the Epstein files, of Kash Patel, taking a beer shower with Team USA, but, not following through on the promise. When Elon Musk and Donald Trump got in their little tit for tat last year and Elon said that Trump is in the Epstein files, this is all it's an open secret. And that's, I think, what we just need to be calling out, as you see my cat Luna here in the background visiting us.
Hi, Luna.
But I think that's what we need to call out, because you're exactly right. Pam Bondi has been a scapegoat. Trump's, still a misogynist before he is a Republican. But he's plenty Republican for our taste as well. And that's why we need to replace all of these people with Democrats that are actually going to fight for us.
Yeah. And you brought up a really important top point there. And this is something I say almost every week. It does not matter what position you're running for or voting on. It does it from president down to the dog catcher. Whatever you have to vote on, do your research. Make sure that you are getting your mail ballots in. All of this, it is vital to win in November. So again, make sure you're looking at every single race that you can. Ask your local organizations what they think. Your LGBTQ caucuses, whatever's closest to you, ask them what they think. Follow them on social medias. We have our list of candidates that we are supporting out on all of our social medias now. So,
yeah, just ask your friends. If everybody's got one person in their life that's way too into the news and politics. I mean, for us, it's probably us three. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
We're the ones getting asked. So yeah, you've got that weirdo friend that's super into it. They're dying to talk to you about it. So just ask them. So, okay. I think that's a really good time to pop into our last segment. It's going to be our shout out or shut down. That is going to be an opportunity for us to talk about something awesome that's going on in the world and shout that out and give it some shine. Or if we want to be petty and shut something down and talk some smack, we can do that too. So, Christian, do you have a shout out or a shutdown today?
I have a really big shout out today.
Okay, we try to sandwich them. So how about you, Oliver? Are you going to shout out or shut down, or you can do both too?
Yeah, I might. I might do both. I can. Should I do my shout out or shut down first?
We'll do you and we'll do Christian, then we'll have you do you, and then we'll end on me, and you can do your both. So okay, Christian, why don't you go ahead and go first?
All right, and Oliver, just so you know, we save the good news after the bad. So do the shutdown, then do the shout out. My shout out is for the state of Georgia and the fact that 13 anti-LGBTQ bills were shut down and did not get passed. Every single one of the anti-LGBTQ bills that I tried to enforce in the State House of Representatives or the State Senate, every single bill was shut down, and I'm very, very happy about that.
Awesome. That's a really good shout out. I hadn't heard that one in the news today, so thank you for sharing that. Okay, Oliver, go. Your turn.
I'm going to shut down Piers Morgan. I appeared on his show earlier today. It's going to broadcast pretty soon. And Piers was trying to do the gotcha thing and saying, you believe in yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. No nuanced answers on policing, on immigration. Oh. And I was on a panel with Breonna Joy Gray, Marianne Williamson, and Joe Walsh, the former Tea Party Republican. And they all said, Piers, Oliver's making good points. Don't try to pigeonhole him. So I successfully shut down Piers Morgan to get the broad spectrum, the political coalition that our campaign is exemplifying, who we're pulling together. We can get Marianne Williamson, Breonna Joy Gray, and Joe Walsh all on the same side, convening to support a nuanced conversation around where we spend our taxpayer dollars, how we reform our immigration system. So Piers Morgan, nice try, pal. But maybe next time. And my shout out is for really our volunteers. I mean, we had last weekend the largest canvas of the campaign, 70 volunteers, 2,500 doors knocked. We had a reporter with The Guardian and WLRN with us. It was just an extraordinary, it turned into a rally. Usually canvas launches are like you get your campaign literature, you take a donut and a cup of coffee, and then you're out on your way. But we had 70 people, so it just turned into an impromptu rally, impromptu campaign fundraiser. The energy is just so extraordinary. And I always tell people, I'm just one person, and the campaign only goes as far as the next person that's willing to pick up the phone on a phone bank or go take a turf packet and knock some doors. So shout out to our volunteers. We're really building a durable organizing infrastructure that just gives me so much hope for South Florida and for the rest of our state, that we're building something that's durable and built to last and serve the people of the state that we love. So shout out to all of our volunteers.
That's awesome.
That's
Love to
amazing.
hear that. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do my I'm going to close it out, and I'm going to do a shout out. And I'm going to do a shout out since we're doing an early recording today. We're recording on Monday. This will be posted. Y'all be hearing it Tuesday-ish. I'm going to shout out everybody, our primary voters. They're voting this week. I know we got Michigan. We talked about Go Dr. Al Sayed. I was if y'all don't know, he was he had a podcast during the pandemic called America Dissected. Kept me sane. He's such a good, smart guy. And I think Wisconsin is coming up this week, or maybe it's next week too. So shout out to everybody that is tuned in to these primaries and keeping up with it. And you Florida voters, if you've got your mail-in ballot, it's time to start mailing that back in. Early vote starts next week, I think on the 8th. So yeah, just shout out to everybody that's getting involved here in the primary.
Absolutely. I do want to ask one final question, Oliver, and I want to double check that your campaign is a completely grassroots, correct?
Yeah, 100% grassroots funded, no APAC, no AI, no cryptocurrency, no corporate PACs or special interest donations. I've signed the No Fossil Fuel Pledge. I've signed the National Nurses United's Patients Over Profits Pledge. So we've got over 13,000 individual campaign donors, and that's something we're really proud of, to show that you can run a modern campaign funded by grassroots donations. You do not need to bend the knee to corporate PACs or to APAC or to anyone else. This is what people increasingly want to see. I mean, what they really want to see is public funding of campaigns and elections. Wouldn't that be nice once we overturn Citizens United and institute those policies? But for the time being, this is the way we're doing it, and we're proud to be doing it this way, and really grateful to everyone who's already chipped into our campaign. And if you would like to, oliverforcongress.com.
That's right where we were trying to leave you to. So thank you for doing that. And where can people find you on socials? Facebook, TikTok, Instagram?
But yeah, we are everywhere. On Instagram, we are at Oliver Adams Larkin. On Threads as well, we're at Oliver A. Larkin on Twitter and on TikTok. At oliveralarkin.bsky.social on Blue Sky. We're on Facebook as well under Oliver for Congress. We're on YouTube, even Twitch. Anywhere you try to find us, we'll be there. And you can find the links again at oliverforcongress.com. You can also go to the volunteer tab on our website, oliverforcongress.com/volunteer. And if you're local in South Florida or would like to come here before the primary to knock doors, you can find our canvassing shifts on Mobilize, our phone banking, which is happening every single day. I was just on a volunteer call before popping in here. So these are great ways to volunteer. And like y'all said, voting is happening right now. Early voting started today in Miami-Dade County, August 3rd. August 8th, it starts in Broward and Palm Beach County, running through the 16th. And you can request your vote by mail ballot all the way up through August 6th for our August 18th primary. So multitude of ways to get involved, and people are making their minds up right now. So it's never been a better time to get plugged in. And I hope to have you amplifying our content and sharing it with all your friends.
You know it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Oliver. You've been amazing. I just want to reiterate for the millionth time, because you're going to hear it from me every week, every show. Get out there and volunteer. If you can't knock doors. If you can't go out and canvass, it's perfectly fine. Go to your candidates that you know are funded completely grassroots and donate $1, $5, $10, whatever you can. Anything that will help
makes a difference.
Yes, absolutely. So once again, Oliver, thank you so much. And I will turn it over to Laura for our outro.
Yes. Well, please remember, listeners, you can like and follow us. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Substack. We are at forsaint.petesake on all of those. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen. And if you could leave a little rate and review, that helps promote the pod on the algorithms. We'll be back actually later this week with more stories from people doing the hard work to make our community better. Until next time, for St. Pete's sake, keep pushing for change.